Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'm delighted to welcome you to the launch of Auschwitz, the Allies and Censorship of the Holocaust. I'm very pleased to welcome the book's author, Michael Fleming.
It's a book about what the Allies knew, how they knew it, and when they knew it.
Michael Fleming's book re-examines the evidence about information that reached Britain from Poland during the war about the mass murder of Jews in Auschwitz-Birkenau. And it shows conclusively that much more evidence was reaching London thanks to the efforts of the Polish underground, thanks to the efforts of the Polish government in exile, than we've previously thought.
Prior to this book, the general consensus had been that Auschwitz as a death camp for Jews was not known in the West. This book actually documents that between November 1942 and June 1944, 45 reports arrived in the West, which revealed the terrible truth about what's happening at Auschwitz.
If the volume of information reaching London was much more substantial, why was there no reaction? Why was action not taken to bring aid to the Jews of Poland, the Jews of Europe, who were facing extermination? Why wasn't more done to stop trains going to Auschwitz, try and stop Auschwitz-Birkenau operating?
Censorship comes into it when we think about how Auschwitz was reported in the Western press. The way in which the Holocaust overall was reported was very low-key. It was generally marginalised. Whether it was newspapers, editors and owners making this decision, or the British propaganda apparatus making this decision, is a subject which is discussed at length in the book.
Censorship is a very strong word. Now, in your book, which needs to be read very carefully, you cite many documents in which government officials, civil servants in London exude fear and apprehension about anti-Semitism in Britain, and also the effect of Nazi propaganda. Documents in which they say we mustn't attempt to be fighting this war on behalf of the Jews because that's what the Germans are saying. There's anti-Semitism on the streets. If we appear to be favouring the Jews, it will encourage domestic anti-Semitism, which could be terrible for morale. So we should downplay what we say about the fate of the Jews in Europe.
The Ministry of Information, especially in wartime, sets the tone of the news agenda. You're right, censorship is a strong word, normally associated with, a blue marker, crossing out words. The notion of censorship, which I try to employ, is broader than that. I talk a very lot in the second chapter about the notion of a censorship regime, which is a continuum. We have understandings which exclude information.
For a very long time, many historians and the public, certainly the Jewish public, tended to blame the Polish government in exile for not doing enough to warn the world, and talked actually about Polish anti-Semitism as getting in the way of information about Auschwitz reaching the West. Michael Fleming's book challenges that stereotype and shifts the spotlight to the Allies, to the British and to the Americans.
Professor Fleming presents a very objective picture of what happened during the Second World War and the Polish effort in informing the Allies, the role of the Polish government in exile, the role of Jan Karski.
Questions need to be asked about the Allied governments, about the Allied military, their priorities.
In Britain, the Ministry of Information was reluctant to allow the free circulation of information about Jews and the free information about atrocities.
To what extent was anti-Semitism, popular anti-Semitism in Britain, an obstacle to the British government being more active in its efforts to help Jews, to rescue Jews, to intervene on behalf of Jews?
All the books of this kind, it may be controversial to some people, but at the embassy we never avoid controversial subjects. But it also helps us in our efforts to fight certain stereotypes, prejudices and inaccuracies. Some journalists write about Polish concentration camps. There were no Polish concentration camps. Even the UNESCO recognizes this in a definition that should be obligatory to journalists, that there are only German Nazi concentration and extermination camps in an occupied Poland.
Michael Fleming's book shifts the paradigm in a fundamental way. It shatters stereotypes about Polish responses to the Jewish tragedy, and it raises immense questions about British and American responses to the Jewish tragedy. And I think it's going to trigger a debate that's going to go on for quite some time and stimulate a lot of important new research.